So last time on The Fat, I broke down the John Wick series and how the latest chapter was a worthy contender in spite of being that ever-tricky fourth film. I wasn't surprised that many people shared my love for the series, but I'm honestly shocked people don't seem to like part 3 as much as I do. I like Chapter 2, don't get me wrong, but Chapter 3 was everything I wanted in a sequel to the original Wicker Man. I feel like it was a real step up in terms of the action, and I think the action is the key to its improved pacing and overall feel. Chapter 3 is my second favourite instalment, and I think it's the most rewatchable of the entire franchise. From the moment it begins, it is an utter thrill ride with barely any fat on it. Some of you even commented to tell me that the third one is the boring one, and respectfully, you're insane. So I want to make the case for John Wick Chapter 3 and prove why it's a top tier action flick. You got yourself a gun. Yeah. It's got the most unique action of the series stacked on top of each other, with a different concept or idea behind every single sequence. It makes it feel fresh and avoids the repetition that I think can happen in some of the other movies. Sometimes Wick will be clearing out rooms one after the other, and even though thanks to some incredible lighting, score and choreography, we could watch that all day, I think 3 goes a step further by giving us a new key idea to every action scene. Before I dive in, I just want to say that this is actually the 250th full fat video. Wow, 250 videos. Thank you for watching, for those of you who have been here since video number 1, and everybody in between who's helped me continue to do this. If you're new to the channel and you like this video, please consider subscribing for more of the goodies. The goodie bag. Get the goodies.
General Grievous, you're shorter than I expected.
They say the noblest spirit embiggens the smallest man, which is why Wick wins against this embiggened man. Fuck me, he's a vertically privileged fucker, isn't he? I love that the very first idea for the first scuffle is simply Wick fights a really big guy. Like a really big guy. The setup here is neat. Wick still has time to kill, but Ernest points out the painfully obvious. No one is watching, so no one is going to know if this big fucker gets a head start.
I still have time.
It's almost up. Who's gonna know the difference?
As with many other assassins in the Wickverse, it's clear he's crossed paths with Baba Yaga before.
You sure this is what you want to do?
The calm, matter-of-fact manner in which they convene, knowing they are moments away from death, is so entertaining. Ernest points out that the prize money for Wick's head could make him a very rich man, and Wick replies with one of his best responses in the series.
14 million, it's a lot of money.
Not if you can't spend it.
I like that this dude is characterised as less of a flawless martial arts machine and more of a powerhouse, throwing Wick around and utilising his strength as his greatest asset. The fucking shush before he pounds Wick into all the aisles is hilarious. We're in a library, so what better way to dispatch Ernest than by making him brush up on some light reading? That final crack of the neck. Ouch! The audience feels that one.
Assemble.
The simple pleasure of intercutting Wick assembling the gun and the baddies coming up the stairs makes for great tension. It's also nice because unlike most Wick action moments, it's really quite small. We have the intricacies of the different weapon parts laid out, and we're watching Wick focusing on trying to piece it together quickly and securely. I love the way the music drops out as Wick turns the cylinder. And then it drops back in just in time for the crescendo to the sequence. Reeves has described the kills as the accents to the action, and that is proved better nowhere else than here. It is so satisfying to watch him click the final piece into place, spin around, and pop that guy as he walks in. The assembly of the gun from different revolver pieces references a key scene from The Good, the Bad and the Ugly where Tuco does something similar. I love that Wick is this glorious melting pot of ninjas, cowboys, assassins and the underworld. Wick is constantly rejoicing in iconic cinema moments, something that carries over into Chapter 4 with shots like this one, a reference to Lawrence of Arabia. Buster Keaton shows up, prophetic of Wick's increasing physical comedy. The film is called The Goat, need I say more? And there's even an a cappella version of Frank Stallone's Take Me Back when Wick climbs the steps Rocky style. In terms of more recent influences, there's of course the oft-mentioned inspiration from The Villainess with that bike chase. Oh boy, we'll get to that.
You're a pack of vultures at the feast. Knives out, beaks bloody.
I already made a whole video on this scene because it's one of my all-time favourites from the series. It is iconic, and I'd say the single most memorable scene from the threequel. The rhythm to this scene is unparalleled. There's loads of knife-throwing sound effects that pop off one after the other, and it gives the action a keen sense of pace. So good when the knife almost goes for Wick's jaffers before he yanks it out and throws it back. Then there's that sweet double throw as he slides to the floor. And to top it all off, that moment where Wick just launches every knife he has into this poor soul. I like that we go from these fast-paced throws to ending the scene with Wick pushing a knife into a guy's eye excruciatingly slowly. My man gets the Isaac Clarke special. And then there's this longer shot where Wick throws the axe all the way down the hall. Mwah!
Don't ever stop! Seabiscuit.
Hot off the back of that incredible knife sequence, John finds himself in a stable. Whilst the gunplay and choreography is pretty standard Wick fare here, the special sauce comes in the form of the horses scattered about the scene, who come in handy for Baba Yaga. Wick is cornered with no gun, so he uses the weight of the horse to bring that first guy off balance, and then... Oh, that is such a gnarly kill. I love seeing Wick slide under the horses, using them to obscure his position in the scene to surprise attack his enemies. The second guy gets a horsey double tap. These kills are some of the most devastating in the series. Nobody wants to be behind a kicking horse, and the visceral impact of those deaths are blood-curdling. It exemplifies what sets Wick head and shoulders above the competition. All these guys are running around the place with no respect for these animals, whereas Wick knows their power and sees an opportunity to dust these assassins with one clean hit. After 2 horse kills, it might feel haggard to do yet a third kick to the face, so instead Wick wraps the lead around this guy's neck, and the pair go for a jolly. You could argue he gets it the worst, at least the other two didn't know what hit them. We get a small taste of bike action to tease us with what will come later. It's so nice of this rider to stay parallel as Wick mercilessly beats him before shooting him with his own gun. An absolute violation, plus hanging off the side of the horse for cover, who doesn't want to see that? Wick rides off on horseback and the first 25 minutes of the movie are wrapped up in the most blistering, exciting fashion possible.
File attack point. Mavericks inbound.
They say you should never work with children or animals. Chad Stahelski had never heard of that saying. And I'm thankful because it means we wouldn't have gotten this awesome scene. Sophia is great. I love that she's just exasperated by Wick turning up because everyone knows he's excommunicado, and hanging out with that guy's a death sentence.
Just a conversation.
Nothing's ever just a conversation with you, John.
Stahelski wanted dog combat in Chapter 2, but scheduling wouldn't allow for it. Parabellum rights that wrong with Sophia and her twin dogs. Halle Berry approached Stahelski about being in John Wick 3, and was reportedly dead set on playing an assassin, unfazed by the mountain of martial arts training it would entail. It's clear in the finished product that she stepped up to the plate, and it's awesome to see John and Sophia in a tag team alongside the puppies. Berry learns to command the dogs so that it would appear easier to perform the moves on camera, rather than constantly deferring to an off-screen trainer. It's so much fun seeing Sophia combine the standard Wick gunplay with the dogs who leap and chew on the baddies at several opportune moments. It's just so much fun. Also, I'm sorry, but the parallels with Sophia and Kane, what with estranged daughters they have to keep safe, means the pair are begging for a team up. The Kane spin-off feels inevitable, so let's get Sophia and her pooches on that too. Given the location of this scene and the orange lighting, it just reminds me of Uncharted 3 and makes me further rue the day that potential GOAT movie franchise decided to go MCU light instead. I love that Wick kills this guy, and the dog is like, nope, I'm just going to keep ripping on him to make sure he's dead. Thorough, I like it. The only thing I think is a shame is it would have been cool to see Wick eventually upgrade to having a dog who can fight alongside him himself.
You shot my dog.
I get it.
We get Sophia in 3 and Mr. Nobody in 4. I always thought we were courting Wick to eventually do that. I feel like if they had planned it better, they wouldn't have given him a new dog at all, because they spent the sequels floundering around over what to do with him. Which is a shame, because he's such a good boy. Look at that smile.
Snake! What happened? Snake! Snake!
Wick 3 started to open up the series to having more action beats without the titular Baba Yaga. When Zero's assassins attack the ballet school, there's a fantastic part where we see these characters emerge from the shadows. At that point, it's probably the most far-fetched Wick has gotten because they're going full Batman here. Wick later does it himself, and further gains that mysterious larger-than-life reputation as the mythical Baba Yaga. I personally really like that they've demonstrated these skills in the Wickverse, and I think it only ups the ante on the fights. This trick is used again in the final fight, as both Wick and his enemies surprise attack each other from the darkness, a move that can only be accomplished by handling the lighting and cinematography of the scene with as much care as the choreography. I also want to say it's great that Wick 3 utilised Yayan Ruhihan and Sisif Arif Ruman, best known for The Raid, in a Hollywood blockbuster when they've been woefully wasted in the past. When Yayan and Sisif were cast in The Force Awakens, along with Raid lead Uko Uwais, fans naturally lost their minds because the implication was we'd get these guys throwing lightsabers around. Okay, so maybe they wouldn't be Force sensitive, but they were at least going to be part of some kick-ass combat, right? Right? What was the point of having them pop up as a couple of dudes who get eaten? It feels like it was stunt casting purely to generate speculation regarding the lightsaber action. These guys were utterly wasted, so I'm glad the Raid was honoured in John Wick 3 instead. Chad Stahelski knows how to utilise these legends to their fullest.
Will you be wanting the back pot, sir?
Middle of the day, Alfred? Not very subtle.
Wick 2 and 4 feature cars as part of the action in satisfying ways, no doubt. But Wick 3 is the only one that gives us a proper chase with vehicular combat. From the moment you see that beautiful shot of the assassins brandishing their swords in unison, hunting Wick, you know you're in for a treat. Oh sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's not forget the moment John acquires his bike by leaping at this guy with no fucks given. I need that again. The unbroken take with Wick centered in the frame as he fends off attackers from both sides is incredibly exciting. Keeping us fixed on Wick keeps the speed of the scene at a breakneck pace, only moving away from him to show off the destruction in all its glory. We rejoin Wick as he evades sword after sword, again only moving away from Wick to let us witness one of the assassins get his own hand caught in the wheels. I like that there's only a couple of shots you'd expect to see in a bike chase, and the rest of it is up close and personal. Focusing on the choreography like any other Wick sequence, it does this without getting too close and sacrificing the speed of the chase, meaning you basically get a vehicular chase and a sword fight at the same time. I can't talk about this scene without mentioning the single strike double kill, which sees both these geezers flip off the bike as Wick speeds ahead. Capping off this exhilarating scene is Wick just about managing to evoke the rules of the Continental before being blown away. Perfection. The high table staging an attack on the Continental is cool enough because it's the one location in the city that we've established as peaceful for 3 movies now. Well, apart from Perkins, that dick, and Santa. But that is John's fault, to be fair. The high table sends their best goons, and these guys are like the stormtroopers of the Wickverse, decked out in matching outfits, their identities obscured, except these guys are a lot more accurate. After we've seen Wick take on everything, it's the perfect third act buff for the villains. You see Wick shooting them, going for all his standard moves, and the bullets just ping off with some seriously sweet sound design. He's forced to be even more precise, resorting to shooting them in the gaps of their armour. It's a solution that makes perfect sense and ups the tension because they are incredibly hard to kill. Add to that the green neon light of the scene, a mood uncharacteristic of the bougie Continental, and you've got one of the best Wick shootouts ever. I love this swimming pool bit where the guy doesn't realise that his bullets won't travel so far, so Wick merely moves far enough away to be out of range, and then comes in and shoots him in the chest point blank. Then Sharon and Wick resort to armour-piercing rounds.
Armour-piercing.
Could it get more badass than watching these two stride out with the twin shotties? The answer is no. Actually, you know what? Mr. Reddick deserves his own chapter.
If you would be so inclined.
After 2 movies of being the concierge, Chiron finally got some action to chew on, and he's great! We've seen him be the polite and hospitable face of the Continental, and in Chapter 3 we get to see how Chiron handles some weapons. Reddick still injects that personality into the action, like this little moment where he adjusts his glasses after laying waste to some high table scouts. Chiron is always keeping it classy. The only true misstep regarding 4, in my opinion, is not including Lance Reddick in the action again. Once you take Chiron to the action, you can't have him take a back seat. It's strange to see him pass in the movie so close to his real life passing, but that is unfortunate timing. Not my problem with his role in the movie, because of course nobody could have predicted that. I get the movie wants to set the stakes, but I'm not going to lie, I was done with Winston by part 3, no disrespect to Ian McShane and his brilliant performance, just the character, and I would have much rather seen Chiron pushed into an uncomfortable position by losing him instead. Imagine if Chiron had a larger role in the movie, more action orientated, with no Continental and no Winston, you'd be able to take that character on a path previously unrealised. And to be honest, he should have gotten the rebuilt Continental at the end, he's bloody earned it. Of course it would have been bittersweet, as even if this had have happened, it would have been Chiron's last appearance, but I think the Wick team must be kicking themselves now for not giving Reddick the proper time he deserved in part 4. Chapter 3 has him shooting armoured slugs into armoured thugs, and it's poetry in motion.
I gotta tell you, I've been looking forward to meeting you for a long time.
Mark Dacascos' Zero is the perfect character to seed into the 3rd movie. What does he have that sets him apart from all the other arseholes that tried and failed to kill Wick over the course of this movie? Well, he's a fan.
I'm a huge fan. John Wick.
Like a massive, massive fan.
And so far you haven't disappointed.
As I said, the matter-of-fact way Ernest and John chat to each other is funny, but Zero takes it up a notch by gushing over Wick at every turn.
Is that the dog? He likes you.
In the lead up to the fight, there's this hilarious moment where Zero keeps trying to get physically close to Wick. He's freaking out about this, and of course, in the most Wick fashion possible, he still wants to kill Baba Yaga. He respects the hell out of him, but he wants to be the guy to kill him. The glass levels dictate some really inventive camera movement as we frame up both Wick and Zero. Stahelski said the whole set required a lot of planning as the reflections made it harder to fake moves. It's totally worth it because I think this scene is like the Hall of Mirrors from Chapter 2 on steroids. I also think the final fight between Zero and his fellow assassins proved that honing the action and making it more personal to finish off plays much better. Wick 1 and 2 struggle with their finales, whereas 3 and 4 know that less is more when it comes to the final beat of action. Even though Zero doesn't perhaps come off as threatening as Kane or Cassian, there are several tense, wince-worthy moments where you can just about believe he could get Wick. After the fight, Zero is hoping with literally everything he's got, his final breaths, that Wick would agree he gave him a good challenge.
Hey, John. That was a pretty good fight, huh?
Yeah.
And he does, and he can seemingly die somewhat content.
Don't worry about me, John. I'll catch up to you, John.
Although it ends on this badass exchange.
No, you won't.
Zero is kind of a precursor to Kane in part 4 because he says to Wick that they are the same. He believes that, but then the next film we're given an actual assassin who is every bit the same level of legend as Wick himself. Zero is skilled, but doesn't quite have that reputation. His yearning to be that person is an interesting bit of characterization, and his hunger makes him feel very dangerous. But there's ultimately one assassin that stands in Wick's way and is perhaps his strongest opponent.
I'll kill them. I'll kill them all.
I think this movie highlights its themes through the action better than Part 2 as well. Part 2 is really only essential because of John's decision to kill Santino, but that's a mechanical story beat rather than juicy character introspection. In Chapter 3, John's conversations with both the Elder and Winston highlight the growing wedge between John, the loving husband who wants to live in peace, and the assassin Baba Yaga, the man who cannot escape the violence.
How have you come to be so lost?
Not lost.
Never seen a man fight so hard to end up back where he started.
Winston ponders which Wick he will die as, a sentiment that perfectly segues into Chapter 4's masterful finale.
Who do you wish to die as? The last thing many men ever see? The Baba Yaga? Or as a man who loved and was loved by his wife?
Keanu surmised this dichotomy by stating it's a battle between two sides of himself. John and John Wick. John is the guy who just wants to be left alone, who seeks a quiet life in which to remember his wife. In order to do that, he has to engage the side of himself that is John Wick, the side that knows how to fight to the death. John Wick is the only one who can help John survive. The examination of John's life and the question over what would be a meaningful existence over merely surviving is what makes this instalment essential. When you rewatch Chapter 3, it establishes all the questions that would go on to feed Chapter 4. 3 captures the philosophy behind Wick's ultimate ending, and I think how you choose to view that ending depends on your appraisal of his words to the Elder.
Who do you wish to die as, Jonathan?
Why do you wish to live?
To remember her. To remember us.
Well, they do say that those who cling to life die.
Oh, John fucking Wick.
The movie moves from action scene to action scene, and each one feels distinctly different in concept, and that's before we even get to the actual look and feel of each scene. Whereas a movie like 2, I don't think it has as many unique ideas behind the action. The most it mixes it up is when it does an extended one-on-one with Cassian, but aside from that, it's a lot of room clearing just in different locations. Again, that's not to disparage how good the action is, but I'm not comparing Wick 2 to any old action film, in which case it would beat most. No, I'm comparing it to more John Wick, and even though it's comparing silver to gold, Parabellum edges it out just about for me. I think having these unique action moments also makes the pacing much smoother. It comes flying out of the gate and never really lets up, whereas 1 and 2 have to establish first why Wick isn't fully retired just yet. I like that in 1, in 2 it's a bit of a drag. 3 literally kicks off with a price on Wick's head, the heat is on. And the thing is, I like 4 a lot, and it does unique things like the Dragon's Breath top-down scene, but it also recycles ideas from 3. The armoured guys in particular, that's all great, but it's all carried over from Parabellum, whereas in 3 it's an original idea, which made it way more exciting upon first watch back in 2019. The reaction was, holy shit, how is Wick going to beat these guys? Whereas the second time you watch it in Chapter 4, you know he just has to get them in the gaps. He's done it before. Taste is subjective, and the great thing about John Wick is it's never really dropped the ball. In my last video, people dropped their rankings and they were all wildly different, but I could sit and listen to anyone make the case for any of the chapters being their favourite. It's rare that a series is so consistent that the top spot is so divided, and that's great. As I said before, Wick 1 is my jam, but I do unashamedly love Parabellum. And 4 and 2 are also utterly fantastic, so you really can't go wrong. Thank you for watching. I haven't done a Patreon call out in quite a while now, mainly because I don't really offer any goodies on there anymore.
You want the goodies?
Welcome to the goodie room.
I'm very grateful to everyone who's donated or donates to this very day, and you help the channel even at times when the views aren't especially great. If you like what I do at Full Fat, you're a long time viewer and you would like to see me continuing this, then I would really appreciate it if you considered joining any of the Patreon tiers. Contributing to the Patreon helps to keep the lights on at Full Fat HQ, aka my bedroom, and the more patrons I have, the easier it is for me to do more niche topics, less sponsored videos, and generally, honestly, make better videos, because sometimes when the views are on a dip, it is hard to get stuck in like usual, you know. It is just pretty disheartening. It's a weird one. Your enthusiasm lives or dies on how well it's going. Even if you felt like contributing $1, that would be another sweet note in my candy G-string. So please head on over to patreon.com/fullfatvideos and see what you think. Thank you very, very much. A big thank you to my Full Fat tier patron, Dr. Chike, and Nathan Shaw. If you'd like to donate money to my Patreon, you can find me at patreon.com/fullfatvideos. If you'd like to find me on Instagram, you can find me at full_fat_videos. And if you'd like to find me on Twitter, you can find me at fullfatvideos.